Many celebrities have ended up in prison, often for minor, quickly forgotten offenses. Then there are the ones who've committed crimes so bad that they end up serving long stretches behind bars, sometimes for life. A dominant figure in music in the 1990s and beyond, Sean Combs, also known as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and Diddy, ran his own record label, Bad Boy Entertainment. There, the writer, producer, executive, hype man made Notorious B.I.G. into one of the most successful rappers of all time. After Biggie's death, Combs moved in front of the microphone. In 1997, he repeatedly topped the charts as a performer or co-creator, and he remained an important character in pop music and an A-list celebrity well into the 21st century. In 2023, Combs' former partner, R&B singer Cassie, filed a lawsuit alleging years of physical and sexual abuse during their relationship. The lawsuit was quickly settled, but numerous people came forward to accuse Combs of sexual assault stretching back to the early 1990s. In 2024, authorities acting on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security raided Combs' homes, looking for evidence of sex trafficking. He was arrested in September 2024. The indictment read, "For decades, Sean Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and the influence of his multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled." Twice denied bail, Combs awaits his May 2025 trial from the Metropolitan Detention Center in Manhattan. If convicted, he could be sentenced to prison for the rest of his life. British musician Gary Glitter, real name Paul Gadd, was one of the UK's biggest stars of the glam rock era. He racked up 15 top 40 hits in the 70s, including the #1 smashes Always Yours, I Love You, Love Me Love, and I'm the Leader of the Gang.
It will take you away one day, won't they? They'll come and go, "This is it, Gary.
Do you reckon?
We're off."
Gadd is also a convicted sex offender. In 1999, he spent 4 months in prison in the UK after confessing to owning a collection of child sexual abuse material. Upon his release, he moved to Cambodia, but was ordered to leave the country following allegations of criminal child abuse in 2002. He then settled in Vietnam, where in 2006, he was convicted of assaulting 2 girls and served more than 2 years in prison. Once back in the UK in 2008, Gadd was added to the sex offenders registry, and in 2015, he was convicted of crimes of a sexual nature involving children dating back to the 1970s. Glitter allegedly assaulted 2 children backstage at a concert and attempted to assault a 3rd child in her bed. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Paroled in February 2023 after serving 8 years, authorities reincarcerated Gadd a month later due to a parole violation, where he remains today. In 2021, 16-year-old Caleb Kennedy of Spartanburg, South Carolina, made it all the way to the top 5 of American Idol, then withdrew from the competition. In a since-deleted Instagram post, he explained, "There was a video that surfaced on the internet, and it displayed actions that were not meant to be taken in that way. I was younger and did not think about the actions, but that is not an excuse." The footage depicted a much younger Kennedy with someone wearing a white Ku Klux Klan hood. Less than a year after his American Idol exit, Kennedy was arrested and charged with the vehicular-related death of Larry Dwayne Paris in Pacolet, South Carolina. Kennedy, who was intoxicated at the time, was accused of driving his pickup truck into a private home, where it killed Paris. In 2024, Kennedy was sentenced to 8 years of incarceration, including 3 years of house arrest, a $15,100 fine, mental health and substance abuse counseling, and 5 years probation upon his release. In 2013, actress Shannon Richardson, who played various uncredited walkers on The Walking Dead, pleaded guilty to developing, producing, possessing, and transferring a toxin with the intent to use it as a weapon. Richardson, who was pregnant at the time, used castor beans to make the deadly poison ricin. She then mailed ricin-laced letters to then-President Barack Obama, New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and a man named Michael Glaze, who worked for Mayors Against Illegal Guns. Richardson also planted evidence in her husband's car and lunchbox, but her attempt to frame him didn't work. She was arrested in 2013 and sentenced to 18 years without the possibility of parole. She's currently serving time in a federal prison in Fort Worth, Texas, and could be released in 2029. With the explosive popularity of her YouTube channel 8 Passengers, Ruby Franke was one of the biggest names in vlogging. Beginning in 2015, the Utah-based mom started posting videos about her day-to-day life with her husband and their 6 kids. She was up to more than 2.5 million followers and millions more views when she made an abrupt U-turn. She joined psychologist Jody Hildebrandt to create the life coaching podcast Connections, abandoning 8 Passengers in favor of a brand promoting ultra-strict parenting practices called Moms of Truth.
Shh! The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret!
In 2023, one of Franke's visibly abused and malnourished children was spotted begging a neighbor for food, water, and assistance.
He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Police arrested Franke and Hildenbrandt, and YouTube banned Franke, removing her videos. She was charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse, and in 2024 was sentenced to 4 1 to 15-year prison terms to be served consecutively. Drew Drechsel made a name for himself on the televised athletic competition circuit. After competing in the parkour show Jump City Seattle in 2011, he moved on to American Ninja Warrior. Drechsel won the show's 11th season in 2019. He also appeared on other Ninja Warrior franchises, including a celebrity version, the German spin-off, and American Ninja Warrior Jr. In 2020, police arrested Drechsel at his home in St. Cloud, Florida. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office serving New Jersey, Drechsel faced 4 charges relating to a 2014 sexual relationship he had with a then 15-year-old girl he met at an American Ninja Warrior event. Drechsel pled guilty, and in June 2024, he was sentenced to over 10 years in prison for his crime. In 2016, Bravo launched The Real Housewives of Potomac. One of the new housewives was Karen Huger, a member of a prominent D.C. area family who had lorded it over society circles for so long she was known as the Grande Dame of the Potomac.
It is just as easy to marry a rich man as it is a poor man. It is a choice.
But in 2007, Huger was arrested in Montgomery County, Virginia for driving while intoxicated. It was the first of 3 such arrests, but Huger wasn't remanded into custody until her 4th conviction in 2025. A judge sentenced Huger to 1 year in prison. In January 2019, Jonathan Porter, professionally known as Blueface, landed his first single, Thotiana, in the top 10 of Billboard's pop chart. Thotiana was remixed by major acts including Cardi B, YG, and Nicki Minaj. But Blueface's career quickly fizzled when none of his follow-up singles managed to hit. In September 2021, Porter was denied entry into a Los Angeles area bar, and he and his entourage attacked the security guard manning the door. The violent assault was caught on tape, and the rapper was convicted for his role in the attack. At first, Porter's manager negotiated a suspended sentence, but when he was found in possession of drug paraphernalia, the presiding judge sentenced him to a 4-year prison term in August 2024. Taking time served under consideration, Blueface will likely remain in prison until late 2025. Trap music, the mesmerizing rap subgenre, was popularized in large part by Willie Maxwell II, better known as Fetty Wap. Emerging with the Remy Boys collective in 2014, Fetty Wap went solo a year later. His single Trap Queen went to number 2 on the pop and R&B charts that year, followed by a string of hits including My Way, 679, and Again. Unfortunately, the Grammy-nominated rapper got sidetracked by legal issues. In October 2021, Maxwell was arrested by FBI agents at New York's Rolling Loud Festival in New York on allegations of drug trafficking. He was accused of helping transport fentanyl and heroin from the western U.S. for sale in the New York City area. Maxwell pleaded guilty to federal charges of conspiracy to distribute and possess cocaine. At his 2023 sentencing hearing, he admitted, "I hurt my community, people who look up to me, my family, and myself. I am truly sorry for any pain I caused." The judge sentenced Fetty Wap to 6 years in federal prison plus 5 years of supervision after his release. When the Dirty South brand of hip-hop took off in the early 2000s, one of its biggest stars was Louisiana-born rapper Michael Tyler, aka Mystikal. With his distinctive gravelly voice, Mystikal became a club favorite for hits like Danger Been So Long, Bouncin' Back, and ubiquitous Shake It Fast. But he disappeared from the charts and the music scene in 2002, shortly after he was arrested on charges of extortion and aggravated rape. The rapper had allegedly staged a confrontation with a hairdresser, claiming she stole $80,000 in checks. Mystikal allegedly told the woman he wouldn't press charges if she performed a sexual act on him. In Louisiana, an aggravated rape conviction can carry a life sentence, so Tyler pled guilty to a lesser charge, reducing his sentence to 6 years. Upon his release in 2010, he was added to the sex offender registry. In 2016, Tyler was again arrested for alleged kidnapping and sexual assault, landing behind bars for a year and a half before prosecutors dropped the case. Then in 2022, Tyler was once again arrested for sexual assault, this time in Baton Rouge.
He didn't show the victim any sympathy, and he doesn't get any sympathy or special treatment.
As of 2025, he's in prison awaiting trial, and if convicted, he could be looking at a life sentence. Brian Grantham was a young Canadian actor with a promising future until he made a terrible mistake. He first appeared on screen in the 2007 TV movie The Secret of the Nutcracker, followed by a role in the big-budget sci-fi action film Jumper in 2008. His most notable roles came in Terry Gilliam's The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The rest of Grantham's career largely consisted of TV shows like iZombie, Supernatural, and Riverdale, which would be his final acting credit.
Does it come with a happy ending? Sorry, we can't guarantee that.
On March 31, 2020, Grantham shot his mother, Barbara Waite, in the back of the head as she played the piano in their home. The actor subsequently recorded an on-camera confession. According to prosecutors, Grantham got in his car intending to kill Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, among others, but he turned himself in. He reportedly killed his mother so she wouldn't have to face the consequences of the violence he planned. Grantham was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 14 years. Linebacker Eric Naposki entered the NFL with the New England Patriots in 1988 and briefly played for the Indianapolis Colts before he joined the new World League of American Football, later renamed NFL Europe. He was part of the Barcelona Dragons defensive line for 4 years, helping the team to a World Bowl championship in 1997. In 1994, while still an active professional football player, Naposki was romantically involved with a woman named Nanette Packard. She was also engaged to a wealthy man named Bill McLaughlin and was the beneficiary of his $1 million life insurance policy. McLaughlin was found dead in his home, shot 6 times, and Packard was discovered to have written hundreds of checks from his accounts.
This is what she does. She meets men, she manipulates them, and she destroys their lives.
Police believe Naposki was connected in some way, but they lacked evidence at the time. But by 2009, authorities built a case and arrested Naposki, believing him to be the person who fired the 6 shots that killed McLaughlin. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole.
After Netflix launched Cheer in early 2020, the biggest star of the reality show about the elite cheerleading squad at Navarro College was Jerry Harris. Raised by a single parent who died just before Harris went to college, he exuded a can-do spirit and charisma that won him and Cheer high-profile fans like Reese Witherspoon and Ellen DeGeneres. For most of 2020, Harris was one of the most liked reality TV stars in the US and easily the most famous cheerleader in the world. Then, in September 2020, teenage twins filed suit, alleging that Harris texted them messages of a sexual nature, demanded they send explicit photographs of themselves, and also attempted to make one of the pair perform a sexual act on him during a 2019 cheerleading event. Harris faced arrest over the situation, and after he confessed to soliciting photos from more than 10 underage individuals on Snapchat and engaging in sexual activities with a teenager, the FBI investigated him even further. In December 2020, the federal agency charged Harris with sexual exploitation of children and criminal reception of child pornography. He entered a guilty plea in February 2022 for the assault at the cheerleading competition and offering payment to a 17-year-old in exchange for sexual materials. In July 2022, a convicted Harris began serving a 12-year sentence in federal prison. Goth-tinged alternative metal band Lost Prophets came out of Wales in the early 2000s and scored some major rock radio hits in the UK and beyond. Their song Last Train Home topped Billboard's alternative rock chart in the US, and follow-ups Wake Up, Make a Move and I Don't Know became just as inescapable. The band was essentially the mouthpiece of singer Ian Watkins, who was both the group's founder and songwriter. However, in 2013, Watkins was convicted on 13 charges that the presiding Crown Court judge claimed, quote, plunged into new depths of depravity, according to the BBC. All 13 crimes were sexual offenses committed against children.
There is no doubt in my mind that Ian Watkins has exploited his celebrity status in order to abuse young children.
Among Watkins' convictions were 3 counts of sexual assault, 7 counts relating to the possession or creation of child sex abuse material, and conspiracy to rape a child, specifically an infant. Watkins' defense attorney unsuccessfully argued that their client shouldn't be held accountable because his prodigious drug use left him with no memory of committing the acts in question. 2 women who provided Watkins access to the children he abused were tried and sentenced to prison as well. Watkins, who the judge felt possessed a, quote, complete lack of remorse and was a danger to the community at large, received a 35-year sentence. When mixed martial arts exploded in popularity in the 2000s, War Machine, whose birth name was John Copenhaver, stood among the sport's most prominent fighters and biggest successes. In a career that spanned from 2004 to 2013, he amassed a record of 5 defeats against 14 victories, of which 8 were knockouts or technical knockouts. War Machine participated in many major mixed martial arts circuits, including Extreme Fighting Championships, Bellator MMA, and UFC. He was also a cast member of the UFC-branded reality TV series The Ultimate Fighter. Less than a year after his last fight, War Machine found himself at the center of an extremely ugly and violent incident. In 2014, he went to the Las Vegas home of his former romantic partner and kidnapped, assaulted, and sexually assaulted the woman. He also brutally attacked a friend of the victim present in the home at the time. War Machine was charged with 31 counts overall, and a Nevada jury found him guilty of everything but 2 counts of attempted murder. Sentenced to life in prison, War Machine will be up for parole in 2053. Kris Wu parlayed his success in K-pop into opportunities in the English-speaking entertainment world. Once a rapper and a singer in the South Korean-based boy band EXO, the Canada-born Wu focused on a solo career and began acting in films in the mid-2010s. He co-starred in the Chinese blockbusters The Mermaid and Journey to the West, The Demons Strike Back, as well as in the American-made big-budget action movies XXX, Return of Xander Cage, and Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. In July 2021, a woman filed a complaint with police in Beijing, China, alleging that Wu coerced her into a sexual encounter when she was 17 years old. In 2020, he reportedly had an employee bring her to his home to supposedly interview to appear in a music video. However, he instead used alcohol to intoxicate the woman and then assaulted her. Wu was arrested, and 2 additional women came forward with similar accusations, while other public figures and teenage women attested to Wu's online sexual harassment. He was jailed, tried, and convicted. In November 2022, the Chaoyang District Court found Wu guilty of rape and issued a prison sentence of 13 years. Skateboarding emerged as a viable professional spectator sport out of California in the 1980s. Mark Gator Rogowski was part of that scene, and by the time he was 14, he was winning statewide skateboarding contests. He went on to earn upwards of $100,000 in annual winnings and endorsements. By the early 1990s, Rogowski was consuming a lot of drugs and alcohol, which foreshadowed his descent into criminal violence and murder. In 1991, after Rogowski split with his partner, he encountered an old friend of his ex-girlfriend named Jessica Bergston. They spent a day together, and at the end of it, Rogowski used an anti-car theft device called the Club to brutally beat Bergston. After beating her, he sexually assaulted her, placed her into a surfboard bag, and strangled her to death. He then buried her body in the California desert. For those crimes, Rogowski received a sentence of 31 years to life. Eligible for parole in 2011, he remained behind bars when the San Diego County District Attorney denied his petition. Successful parole approvals in 2019 and 2022 were ultimately reversed by California Governor Gavin Newsom as well. In the 1960s and 1970s, Roy Estrada contributed bass guitar to 2 of the most important and definitive bands of the era. From 1964 to 1975, Estrada played off and on with the Mothers of Invention, the support musicians for experimental rock legend Frank Zappa. When he wasn't actively recording or touring with the Mothers, Estrada was busy with Little Feat, the swamp rock group he co-founded that would go on to record multiple well-regarded albums. With his era of relevance long since past, Estrada made headlines in the 2000s for his criminal behavior. After his release from a California prison for committing a lewd act with a minor, Estrada moved to Texas and repeatedly abused a female relative under the age of 14. The members of Estrada's family responsible for the child's welfare didn't know that Estrada was a convicted sex offender. For this series of crimes, he reached a plea deal with prosecutors and was sentenced to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole in 2012. A prolific hitter in Major League Baseball, Mel Hall entered the league playing for the Chicago Cubs in 1981 and broke out in 1983. That year, he hit 17 home runs and racked up 56 runs batted in. He'd spend a few years in Cleveland and then head to the Yankees, amassing nearly 1,200 hits and more than 600 RBIs altogether. After leaving American baseball in 1992 to play in Japan, Hall returned to the MLB briefly in 1996 before retiring for good. He moved from pro baseball to amateur athletics, where in Fort Worth, Texas, he coached girls' teams in softball and basketball. In 2009, Hall was convicted for crimes perpetrated against a 12-year-old member of his basketball team. He was charged with 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault and 2 counts of indecency with a child. Several teenage athletes Hall had coached testified against him, stating that he'd taken improper liberties with them. These acts included unwanted touching, explicit conversations, and sexual assault. Hall was sentenced to 45 years in prison, with eligibility for parole arriving 22.5 years into the term.
Yo, what's up guys? Did you like that trendy hip-hop beat?
Austin Jones was among the first wave of celebrities who used YouTube to make themselves famous and get a mainstream entertainment career going. While still a teenager in 2007, Jones made videos of himself singing well-known songs. Branding himself an emo a cappella singer, Jones went on to roll out original material, release multiple albums, and tour, all while maintaining his status as a YouTube sensation. Through his efforts, he attracted more than 500,000 subscribers who watched his videos and amassed many millions of views. As Jones was a youthful-looking teen idol, he attracted many fans in their teens or younger. Sadly, Jones used his platform and fame to exploit them. In 2017, the singer was arrested after he reportedly used Facebook to encourage his followers, some as young as 14, to send him sexually explicit and nude images and videos. Jones agreed to a plea bargain, and in 2019, a Chicago judge sentenced the YouTube personality to 10 years in prison.
As a child and young teenager, Danny Masterson popped up on a number of TV shows before landing his signature and most famous role, playing sarcastic teenage delinquent Stephen Hyde on 8 seasons of Fox's hit period comedy That 70s Show. After the series ended in 2006, Masterson focused on his side career as a DJ and co-starred on the Netflix sitcom The Ranch. After 3 women filed criminal complaints against Masterson, the Los Angeles police opened an investigation in 2017. According to the allegations, between 2001 and 2003, Masterson sexually assaulted 3 women in his home in Hollywood. In June 2020, Masterson was arrested. He stood trial on charges of forcible rape in December 2022, but the trial ended without a verdict. The next trial, in May 2023, ended in a conviction for Masterson on 2 rape charges, with a hung jury on the 3rd count. Masterson was kept behind bars until his sentencing hearing in September 2023, where a judge sentenced the actor to 30 years to life in prison.
They were able to see through the evidence and come to the right decision in finding this defendant, Mr. Masterson, accountable.
Joe Son was most famous for his role in Austin Powers as villainous henchman Random Task, a parody of the James Bond movie minion Oddjob. He actually landed these roles after his involvement in a serious crime, but Son wouldn't meet justice until after he had made a name for himself in Hollywood. On Christmas Eve 1990, Son aided in the kidnapping, assault, torture, and group sexual assault of a woman. An unrelated incident in 2008 turned up DNA evidence that connected Son with those crimes, which earned the actor a life sentence with no possibility of parole. Then, shortly after beginning serving his sentence, Son beat his prison cellmate to death. A jury found Son guilty of voluntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to an additional 27 years. From 2011 to 2014, the Discovery Channel scored a reality TV hit with Sons of Guns, tracking the day-to-day activities of Red Jacket, a weapons store in Louisiana, and the family who ran it. Shop owner William Hayden was front and center for most of the series' episodes. Right around the time that Sons of Guns wrapped up its run in 2014, Hayden was arrested for multiple sexual assaults on a minor. The accuser testified that in 2013 and 2014, Hayden raped her several times in his truck and at his home. During the trial, another woman came forward and took the stand to recount Hayden's 2 sexual assaults in the early 1990s, when she was 12 and 13 years old. Hayden faced another charge when his daughter accused him of sexual assault. For all of those sex crimes committed against minors, Hayden was found guilty in 2017 of forcible and aggravated rape and sentenced to 2 simultaneous life sentences and an additional 40 years. In another proceeding later in 2017, a judge handed down a 3rd life sentence. Defensive back Darren Sharper played in the NFL for 14 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, and New Orleans Saints. During that span, he led the league in interception return yards 3 times and interceptions twice, earning him 5 Pro Bowl selections, a spot on the NFL's All-2000s team, and a Super Bowl ring.
The things that I've done in the past has been able to help teams win.
Not long after he retired and took a job as an analyst with the NFL Network, allegations began to surface about numerous crimes he'd committed. In February 2014, New Orleans police arrested Sharper and another individual on charges of sexually assaulting 2 women in New Orleans the previous year. At the time, the ex-football star was also the subject of investigation in similar cases in Florida, Nevada, Arizona, and California. Investigations revealed that Sharper had reportedly drugged the women prior to the assaults. In August 2016, a U.S. District Court in New Orleans sentenced Sharper to an 18-year and 4-month prison term, plus 3 years of supervised release upon his parole. 3 months later, a court in Los Angeles issued Sharper a 20-year sentence, to be served concurrently with the previous punishment. Under the name Sunny, Tammy Sytch was a top manager and valet in WWE in the 1990s. Among other accomplishments, she managed the fitness-obsessed duo known as the Body Donnas to a tag team title win at WrestleMania 12. In March 2022, Sytch was arrested after crashing her vehicle into a car stopped at an intersection just outside Daytona Beach, in Ormond Beach, Florida. The individual in that car, 75-year-old Julian Lassiter, died from injuries suffered from the impact. A sobriety test indicated that Sytch's blood alcohol level at the time of the accident was more than 3 times Florida's legal limit. A court disallowed Sytch's bond payment because the former wrestler had been arrested multiple times in 2022 already, for public intoxication and for violation of a restraining order relating to a domestic violence charge. In August 2023, she entered a no-contest plea and faces a prison term of about 25 years if convicted. Of the dozens of women who have appeared on one of Bravo's Real Housewives reality shows, Jen Shah of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is among the most memorable, because her money-making endeavors landed her in prison. In 2021, Shah and her assistant, Stuart Smith, were indicted by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York on charges of money laundering and wire fraud. From 2012 to 2021, Shah and Smith ran telemarketing operations that sold income-generating products and services that didn't exist in order to purposely defraud elderly consumers.
I invested more than half of the savings I had for retirement.
After initially entering a not guilty plea on counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering, the latter charge was dropped. Shah agreed to a plea deal in 2022 and admitted to the wire fraud charge. In January 2023, Shah received a 6.5-year prison sentence.
You probably remember a man named Jared Fogle from the Subway sandwich commercials. When he was just 20 years old, he weighed over 400 pounds. He decided to change his life in 1998 by exercising and eating 2 sandwiches from Subway every day. He lost more than half of his body weight in less than 1 year, according to the Los Angeles Times. He then appeared in a Men's Health article and soon became a spokesman for Subway, appearing in his first commercial for the sandwich shop in 2000. He had parlayed his weight loss into an income-earning gig. A few years later, things took a very dark turn. During a plea deal with authorities in 2015, he confessed to receiving child pornography and sexually abusing minors, according to NPR. He was involved in interstate travel to pay for sex and possessed 400 videos of illicit pornography. Even worse, many of the videos were sent to him by the head of his charity, according to prosecutors in the case against him. Fogle was sentenced to over 15 years in prison and won't be eligible for parole until he has served at least 13 years. Fogle was also reportedly ordered to pay restitution to 14 minors that he assaulted, to the tune of $1.4 million. Singer R. Kelly was arrested by the feds on July 11, 2019 in Chicago. He and a few associates allegedly recruited young girls for sexual encounters, isolated them from their families, and controlled them so they wouldn't seek help, according to the Chicago Tribune. An indictment was filed in a U.S. District Court in New York City. And Chicago prosecutors also issued an indictment claiming Kelly paid off witnesses and victims in a 2008 child pornography trial.
And it was critically important in this case in particular for people to come forward and to tell their stories.
Trial dates in New York were postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While Kelly was in a Chicago federal jail awaiting trial, he was attacked by Latin King gang member Jeremiah Shane Farmer in August 2020. Farmer beat the star up while he was in bed, and Kelly reportedly sustained a serious concussion during the incident. In June 2022, Kelly was given 30 years in prison following his sex trafficking conviction the year before, while in September he was found guilty of producing child pornography, with his attorneys requesting the sentence be limited to 11 years. Todd and Julie Chrisley achieved widespread recognition for their reality show Chrisley Knows Best, which first debuted in 2014. The program follows the married couple and their children in the South as they go about their lives. So how did the Chrisley clan get so wealthy? Well, Todd was supposedly a highly successful entrepreneur and real estate developer who applied his uncompromising business ethics to governing his family, leading to no shortage of drama. Despite Todd's ever-watchful eye on the goings-on of his household, there's always someone getting into trouble or causing some turmoil. Chrisley Knows Best was popular enough to lead to various spin-offs, including the According to Chrisley web series, What's Cooking with Julie Chrisley, and the podcast Chrisley Confessions. Unfortunately, things got even more real for the reality TV family when Todd and Julie found themselves embroiled in a difficult legal problem. The couple was charged with tax evasion, conspiracy, bank fraud, and wire fraud on August 12, 2019. This culminated on June 7, 2022, with both of them being found guilty on all counts, though with separate sentences. Todd was sentenced to 12 years in prison, while Julie was sentenced to 7. Joe Exotic entered the public consciousness with the release of the massively popular 2020 Netflix documentary series Tiger King. It chronicled the bizarre world of big cat collectors with an emphasis on the even more bizarre Exotic, who, in addition to running the GW Zoo in Wynwood, Oklahoma, also dabbled in guns, cultivating a career in country music, and running for political office. The docuseries shone a spotlight on the cast of eccentric characters that populated the world of big cat collecting and the madcap antics they got up to. However, the highlight of the show was Exotic's intensifying clashes with Carol Baskin, an animal rights activist, which culminated in his attempt to eliminate her for good by hiring a hitman for $3,000.
We hear it's Carol's birthday next month, and we're shipping her 2 of these.
Of course, Exotic's murder-for-hire scheme didn't go unnoticed by the authorities, nor did his other unlawful actions. According to CNN, his other crimes included the killing of 5 tigers, selling baby lemurs despite filing them as donations, and other wildlife violations. In 2020, the United States Attorney's Office Western District of Oklahoma handed Exotic a 22-year prison sentence, in addition to 3 years of supervised release after he served his sentence. Bloomberg Law states that while he managed to reduce his sentence by 1 year previously, Exotic's 2022 appeal to decrease it by another 8.5 years was shot down by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit.
It is a ticking time bomb. If somebody thinks they're going to walk in here and take my animals away, it's going to be a small Waco.
Josh Duggar's claim to fame is that he's one of 19 children in the Duggar family, the focus of the reality TV series 19 Kids and Counting. Because the family is so devoted to their Baptist faith, parents Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar have been open about not using birth control, which is why they have so many offspring. While a big part of the show's fascination lies in seeing how the two parents deal with raising so many kids at once, it's the strict religious manner with which the family functions that have made 19 Kids and Counting so interesting to watch. In the Duggar household, the children are only allowed to watch family-friendly TV shows. Modest clothing must be worn and chaperoned courtship is practiced. Unfortunately, those rigid religious beliefs didn't prevent the Duggars' oldest child, Josh Duggar, from engaging in various crimes. Josh first attracted controversy in 2015 when word spread of his supposed molestation of multiple young girls, among which were several of his sisters. His legal troubles got worse when he was charged with possession of child pornography, to which he pleaded not guilty. However, Josh was found guilty on the charges of receiving and possessing child pornography in 2021, resulting in a prison sentence of 12 years and 7 months. Josh and his legal team are set to appeal to the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in February 2023. Tory Lanez was a rapper who first garnered widespread attention with the release of his 2013 mixtape Conflicts of My Soul, The 416 Story. 3 years later, after signing to Benny Blanco's record label Mad Love Records and a collaboration with Interscope Records, Lanez released his first full-length album, I Told You. The album was a considerable success, largely due to its hit singles Say It and Love, the latter of which received a Grammy Award nomination for Best R&B Song. Lanez capitalized on his popularity in 2018 with 2 more albums, Memories Don't Die and Love Me Now. The album of his that ranked highest on the Billboard 200 chart was 2019's Chicks Tape 5, which came in at number 2. However, what started as the beginnings of a long and successful career as a hip-hop and R&B artist was cut short when, in 2020, Lanez shot popular recording artist Megan Thee Stallion with an unregistered semi-automatic firearm, leaving her with minor injuries. He was found guilty of multiple charges and could face up to 22 years in prison. Lanez's defense attorney Jose Baez told TMZ that because of the celebrity nature of the trial, mistakes were made during the proceedings, which may tip the scale in their favor of winning an appeal. The sentencing has been delayed until April 2023. Until that can take place, though, Lanez remains in jail.
Marion Hugh Suge Knight Jr. is the former CEO of the infamous 90s hip-hop label Death Row Records, which released numerous multi-platinum albums by the likes of Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur, before falling into obscurity by the turn of the century. In January 2015, he had an altercation with a man named Cleabone Sloan, who worked on the biopic Straight Outta Compton, a film that doesn't necessarily paint Suge in the most positive light. The fight got so intense that Knight ended up grazing Sloan with his vehicle and running over a man named Terry Carter, who died from his injuries. Knight initially claimed his actions were in self-defense and that he was being chased by 2 armed men. 3 years later, Knight entered a plea deal and was sentenced to 22 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter and 6 years for a third strike violation, which totaled 28 years behind bars. He has been serving time at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County, California since 2018 and isn't eligible for parole until 2037. Not long after he was sent to prison, Knight claimed that Dr. Dre was behind a plot to assassinate him. He told The Blast it was a murder-for-hire scheme with a paper trail that proves Dre was involved in a plan that would get rid of Knight. So far, nothing has come of these accusations. Film mogul Harvey Weinstein is in prison based on the allegations of just 2 people, Miriam Haley, and Jessica Mann, even though a total of 87 women spoke out about the sexual abuse they experienced at his hands over the years. According to biography, Weinstein was arrested in New York and charged with rape, committing a criminal sex act, sexual abuse, and sexual misconduct in 2018. Investigators in California and London were also targeting the producer for sex crimes. Before he went to trial, Weinstein posted $1 million bail and was ordered to wear an ankle monitor. He was later indicted on charges of rape in the first and third degrees, a first-degree criminal sexual act, and other felony sex charges. The entire time, Weinstein refuted the charges and claimed that the victims were willing participants. At one point during the investigation, a spokeswoman told USA Today, any allegations of non-consensual sex are unequivocally denied by Mr. Weinstein. In 2020, the producer was found guilty of committing a criminal sexual act against Haley and rape in the third degree. He was found not guilty of predatory sexual assault and rape in the first degree against Mann. Weinstein was sentenced to 23 years in prison and is a registered sex offender. New Orleans rapper C. Murder-born Corey Miller was convicted of second-degree murder for killing a teen named Steve Thomas in a nightclub in 2002. The rapper started serving a life sentence in Louisiana State Penitentiary in 2009, according to NBC News. However, there's a twist in his case. Since his incarceration, 2 major eyewitnesses came forward to recant their testimony. Plus, an unlikely ally has come to his defense, reality star Kim Kardashian. In April 2020, the Supreme Court determined that jury verdicts in trials involving serious crimes must agree unanimously. In Miller's case, he was convicted 10-2. Kardashian, who is studying to be an attorney, tweeted at the time, "Since his trial, witnesses have recanted, new evidence of his potential innocence has come to light, and there are claims of jurors being pressured into voting to convict." One witness, Kenneth Jordan, revealed that he was pressured to lie about C. Murder because he feared being imprisoned himself on unrelated charges. The other witness, Darnell Jordan, also claimed he felt pressured to lie under oath. Meanwhile, the convicted rapper has claimed he's innocent of all charges.
They got me for a second-degree murder, something I didn't do.
Michael Jace, who you may know for the television police drama The Shield, shot his wife in front of their 2 children in their Los Angeles home in 2014. According to CNN, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder. The motive for the killing appeared to be jealousy. His wife, April Jace, wanted a divorce, and the 53-year-old actor was convinced she was dating another man. After committing the murder on May 19, 2014, he called the police and his father-in-law and admitted to the crime. Jace had a history of violent behavior. A friend of his first wife revealed in a sworn statement during a 2005 custody case that he had choked and hit his first wife and slammed her against the wall. Jace's acting career spanned 2 decades, including a role as basketball legend Michael Jordan in the made-for-TV movie Michael Jordan, An American Hero. Nathaniel Glover, aka Kid Creole, is a founding member of hip-hop group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. Glover, 61, was arrested and charged with murder in the second degree after stabbing a man named John Jolly in the chest. Glover and Jolly, a registered sex offender, had an altercation in Midtown Manhattan. During an interview in March 2021, Glover was eager to tell his side of the story. He has previously been labeled as homophobic, but insisted he merely acted in self-defense and disputed reports that he had problems with the LGBTQ community. Glover claimed he was minding his own business when Jolly aggressively pursued him and appeared to have harmful intentions. Glover initially thought Jolly was trying to pick him up before the latter began to follow him. Glover is still waiting for a trial date and is struggling to stay positive. He explained, "I'm suffering. I'm locked in a room 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, day in, day out, not knowing what my fate is going to be because my case is dragging on. It's very difficult for me right now."
If you or someone you know may be the victim of child abuse, please contact the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4A-CHILD, 1-800-422-4453, or contact their live chat services.